how much that takes time to put that together, but I find myself frequently when I want to see what happened at a meeting in the past year, I just go to the minutes and I can find what happened, exactly when, and what was going on. It's quite an important document. So anyway, I looked at them and thought they were in order. And if everybody else did too, I'd entertain a motion and a second to approve them.
Motion to approve.
A motion from Mr. Hanson, second from Mr. Stromberg. And so any discussion? If not, we'll go ahead and vote. And
Now, we monitor that closely, and we think we have a really solid capital plan in place. And one of the other things that's extremely important is continue to maintain and recruit staff that are skilled and motivated. And thanks to a lot of the work that this board has done in the past and what you continue to do, we're able to stay in step with our member communities, and we're not competing against them. They're not competing against us. We kind of work together in harmony. I think that's important to continue. Some of the budget highlights this year, our budget is just over $59 million, and that reflects, first of all, an increase in municipal tons of about 25,000 tons, and that is due in part because of the PDC's assessment of growth in the region, for one, and the other is the other increase in that to account to the 25,000 tons is the fact that we're going to be collecting more recyclables from those communities this year, and that's going to drive our total number of tons up from where we are this year. We started that number for what we're currently doing, and then we added the growth and what we anticipate the additional recycled tons that we'll be collecting would be. The proposed budget represents an increase of $5.7 million from the FY26 budget, and that proposed budget, the reason for that increase in the proposed budget is a $6 per ton cost that's increased for the tip fee to cover the SPSA sort project that we're working on. And that's been, the board is well aware of the increases that are coming with that. The proposed budget represents a tiered approach to commercial waste, and I'm going to go over that more in depth as we move forward. And the reason for that, there's two parts to that. Number one is we're trying to be more certain about the number of commercial tons we're going to bring in so that we can more accurately budget. The second thing is that we have received requests from one of our state delegates to look at the disparity really between what the lowest amount of contracted commercial waste was, which was 30,000 tons, where you actually, the commercial customer got a cut because they were bringing us 30,000 tons. The delegate's point was that it kind of keeps the small guy, the newcomer, out of the game because there's such a disparity between the 30,000 and what the contract commercial rate was. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but there's a lot of reasoning behind the proposal for this tiered structure. It also provides funding for the completion of the transfer station. It adds $2 million to the designated fund balance for closure, post-closure. That's something that this board needs to continue to do, is put away money because there's going to be further expenses as we move down the road for closure, and also construction of second phase of cell 7 and cells 8 and 9. We're proposing a 3.5% cost of living allowance for our employees, and we intend to share, this budget represents us sharing the cost of insurance premiums. As I've told you already, insurance premiums went up 25% this year, which is a pretty steep increase. It was about $250,000 total. And rather than put that on the employees' back, it takes up all of their any increase in pay that they would receive. We lowered those expectations on both ends, and we'll talk more about that as we move forward. Protected municipal tons, I think this chart just kind of shows where each member community is in terms of the percentage of total waste, and I think it's no surprise Virginia Beach has the largest slice of the pie at 33%. Not far behind is Chesapeake at 25%. And our smallest community, of course, is Franklin. And then Southampton County brings in about 2% of the total waste, and then Isle of Wight about 3%, Suffolk about 10%, Portsmouth brings in about 40,000 tons, and then Norfolk is about 85,000 tons. So you can see each member community what their volume represents in terms of the total weight. So the proposed changes to the tip fee, and this is going to be part of what you're going to have to vote on in just a a short time, but I wanted to spend some time and answer any questions anybody might have. The municipal solid waste rate this year will move from $65 to $71 a ton, and that represents the additional 108,000 tons of waste that will be processed at the facility in Portsmouth. The contract non-municipal waste, the current rate in today's budget is $62. We're proposing, and that $62 for the contract non-municipal waste is for 30 tons and or more. They've got to guarantee us that they bring us 30 tons. If they bring us 25 tons, they have to pay us for the 5,000 tons that they don't bring us. So we're under contract for that. We actually have 3 vendors that currently have contracts for 30,000 tons. Excuse me. So what we've proposed this year is to add a 20,000 ton minimum and increase the tip fee from 65 to 67, and then a 10,000 ton threshold, and we would raise it to $69, and then we would go to the $78 a ton, which is for non-contract waste, from non-contract commercial waste. So you can see the tiered approach gives people an option. If they want to guarantee us that they'll bring us 10,000 tons, then what that does is changes their rate from $78 a ton to $69 a ton. We've done the math, and we feel like there's only a handful of customers who are going to probably even consider that adjustment just because of the low volumes that they currently bring us. But if they were to bring us 10,000 tons, the increase in revenue, because we have fixed costs, that increase in revenue would cover those costs appropriately. So I don't see these numbers reducing our revenue at all. We've done a lot of work on this. We brought in folks to look at it with us, and we're comfortable that this will not result in a decrease in revenue. It does result in a decrease in the cost per ton. But again, remember, we have fixed costs. If you have a transfer station that's open, then you have electricity, you've got 5 to 9 people who have to work it, depending on the number of tons that particular station brings in. So those costs you're going to have to pay whether you bring in 1 ton or you bring in 5,000 tons. So all we're trying to really do is increase that so we can get to the top of the level of each one of those transfer stations that we can handle. Is there any questions on that, on the kind of the theory behind what we're trying to do here?
Dennis, I did want to, for the benefit of some of our newer board members and the public who may be listening in, our $71 proposed rate essentially covers the cost of the municipal solid waste processing and handling and landfilling. And some people will ask, well, why is the non-municipal waste lower? We don't landfill that. We do not process and landfill that. We just transport it and move it. And in fact, we actually make it, there is a net revenue. Those non-contract wastes actually generate I'll call it net revenue. I don't want to call it profit, a net revenue for us. So when people, if you are confronted with questions, say, why isn't that the same rate as our rate? It's because our rate involves a lot more and is essentially compensatory. Those rates actually are not compensatory. They are net revenue producers for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would also say that the increase from $62 for commercial waste to the $65 that we're proposing this year is representative of the increase in the cost for hauling and for disposal. So it's about a 3% increase on those two costs. So we just applied it directly to the cost of per ton. Yes, sir, Mr. Hanson.
For the non-contract, what's the current rate? It's 78 today, and it's going to remain 78 for non-contract. That price is not changing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions on that? Okay, revenues versus expenditures. This is a chart that we use every year, and it seems to be helpful. Our charges for our revenue that are coming in, first of all, tip fees, and I'll show you on the next slide, are the bulk of our revenue. We also bring in funds from environmental service such as tire shredding, HHW, electronics, recycling, those sorts of things. That's about $1.4 million. Landfill gas recovery, that's where we turn landfill gas into methane, and then it gets sold on the open market as renewable energy. We are looking at an increase in our royalties for that to about $900,000 this year. Miscellaneous income, we're looking at a decrease in miscellaneous income. You know, I wanted to share with you, that's lease revenue. We have our building next door has first floor and a second floor. The majority of the first floor is leased to different organizations like HR TAC. This represents those lease revenues we bring in. If we have additional hours at Chesapeake and we charge them for it, it goes into miscellaneous revenue. Any credit card fees that we bring in goes to miscellaneous revenue, and then we have a rebate that we get on our P cards. Those funds go into miscellaneous revenue. We anticipate this year that there will be a decrease in that. Interest earnings at just under $1 million. That's for our funds that we have invested. We are going to look at some different options, and the Finance Committee is probably going to be called on to have some discussions with us about, the Audit Committee will be called on to have some discussions with us about how we best move forward with our some of our investments this year. But it represents 11% increase in total revenue this year. Expenses this year goes up to $47 million. Our capital equipment, the $3.5 million is a typical number that we try to stay in. When we created our capital equipment replacement schedule, we based it on a $3.5 million annual expense. And for some of the newer board members, you know, capital expense does not mean we borrow that money. We cash fund our capital, so it's in our operating budget, not in a capital budget like typical local government does. And then we're looking at $8.5 million going into the reserves this year for a total expense of $59 million, and that's balances the budget. Our total revenue, this is a breakdown of where the revenue comes from. As you can see, about 94% of our revenue comes from tip fees. About 2% comes from our charges for environmental services. 1% comes from the landfill gas recovery, another 1% from miscellaneous income, and then 2% from our interest income. I think that the biggest takeaway from this slide is that how important tip fee revenue is. So a breakdown of those tip fees, specifically municipal tip fees are expected to bring in $33.7 million. Navy waste, that's a contracted price on your tip fee schedule. Every year that changes. We have a contract with the Navy for a couple of different, we have two different contracts with the Navy, one for the shipyard and one for the rest of their facilities in the region. C&D, that's construction and demolition debris. We're looking at about $660,000 coming in. Norfolk sludge, we allow Norfolk to bring their sludge from the water plant to the regional landfill. That's a little over $400,000. And our contract waste brings in just over $12 million. And then the non-contract waste, which is that we're bringing in $78 a ton, is just over $6 million. And then the other CSW is solid waste that comes in, such as boats. We have a number of items that come to the landfill. Clean fill, they have 3 different levels of fill that can come in. Peanut shells, mulch, things like that we bring in would fall under the CSW. So the major variances in the revenue this year is the increase in the landfill gas royalties of $300,000. This renewable energy credits that we get are really amazing in terms of how much they're selling this gas for. You might remember that at one point when we put in the concentrator, we thought we would use landfill gas to fire the concentrator instead of natural gas. And what we found out, it was about a quarter as much to fund it with natural gas than it was using landfill gas, because the landfill gas was so lucrative because of the renewable energy credits that we got from that. There's a decrease in miscellaneous income this year of $78,081, and then we see an increase in the tip fee of $5 million, just over $5.4 million, and that increase in the tip fee is representative of the increase in tip fee to local governments for the SPSA sort project. Expenses. Here's a breakdown the same way of what our expenses are going to be. Again, capital improvements is about 6%. Capital improvements is about 6% of the total budget, and about 14% of the total budget is for the reserve fund. Salaries takes up about 17%. Benefits about 6%. Those numbers have the benefit numbers certainly gone up this year because of the increase in insurance costs. Professional services, that is for our legal fees, for engineering work, for our communications work that we're doing. All of that falls into professional services. Materials and supplies, it's about 6%, and then disposal and hauling, which is the largest part of our budget, is the 38%. Break down those expenses. Capital equipment replacement was the $3.5 million. Again, that's a decrease of this year from last year, because last year we had some unexpected expenses that we funded out of the capital budget. Reserve for landfill and flyover is actually $8.5 million. That's not necessarily for the landfill and flyover moving forward. Some of that money will go to finish up those projects, but we'll continue to have the reserves going in, and we'll have to change the title of that, and we'll bring that back to you when we're ready to do that. The title will probably be landfill construction at that point. Salaries and wages, just under $10 million this year. Employee benefits, about $3.8 million. Professional and contract services, just over $6 million. Materials and supplies, $3.3 million. And then other operating expenses, about $1.7 million. Commercial waste and hauling and disposal is $22 million. That's for the hauling of commercial waste, disposal of commercial waste, and a tip fee for our municipal solid waste that we're paying to AMP now. The variances, waste and hauling and disposal went up $4.3 million. Capital equipment purchases went back down to 3.5, and we took the just over $900,000 out. Salaries and benefits go up $1.2 million, and that's based on a 3.5% increase in the splitting of the cost for the increase in the insurance at 75/25. Professional services went up to $291,000. That's basically a lot of that is due to the increase in the cost for engineering services, and certainly the addition of the communications budget that we have this year that we didn't have last year. And then other operating expenses go up just over $5.7 million. Our projected tip fee, and I have a circle around the 78 because that's the $71 per ton and the $78 per ton represents partial amount of the waste going to SPSA sort project. In FY30, when you approve that budget, that will be the budget for all 460,000 tons or 450,000 tons going to AMP. And that's based on our contracted increase, annual increase of 2.5%. So, moving on to the tip fee schedule. All of you should have a tip fee schedule in your packet that you received. Excuse me? Page 25 of your packet, so you can see that. This is just represents the same changes I've already told you. The municipal solid waste tip fee going to $71 per ton. The 10,000 ton minimum, 20,000 ton minimum, and 30,000 ton minimum, and then the $71 per ton. There's a couple of $71 per ton on your sheet, and that's because there are things that citizens, that we will take from citizens, but we may not take it at the landfill or at the transfer station, so it has to be brought to the landfill. So that's the same cost as any other trash that you would receive from municipal customers. Also, we have some of the communities where, especially out in Franklin, where Southampton County resident might bring waste to Franklin Transfer Station, it gets charged that same amount. And so the tip fee schedule just explains that out, because it's not a municipality bringing us trash in a trash truck and dumping it on the floor. There are other ways we receive municipal solid waste from citizens, and that's reflected in the changes as well. Are there any questions on the tip fee schedule? Those are the only changes that we are proposing this year. Is the tiered approach, and then the increase to $71 per ton for municipal solid waste. Okay, so let me explain that you will need today to adopt a tip fee schedule, adopt a preliminary tip fee schedule. You adopt this today, but it requires a public hearing. You have to set the public hearing today. That public hearing will be for our May meeting. It'll be advertised according to state law, and then you come back, you have a public hearing, and the board would finalize the tip fee schedule at that time. And I would ask Brett if he has anything else to add to that, and if not, he will read the resolution to to adopt the preliminary tip fee schedule and to set the public hearing date.
Nothing more to add on the procedures. Want to make sure nobody had any issues they wanted to address on the budget before we took it up.
Brett and I have had this conversation a number of times. If anybody has an issue with anything on this tip fee schedule, it is crucial that you bring it up now. There certainly could be something a citizen can come in and make some case next month, and we would change it. But it's really difficult and extends out the process. If you're not certain, let's ask the questions, and if you got any comments about it, we can try to deal with it today, because it does make it difficult if you change it after the public hearing. And you want to add to that?
Well, there's a process for we're going through it, and I thought it was necessary to do that because it relates to the tip fee that's being proposed here. And Dennis's point is ancillary to that, which is that if somebody wants to change it, it's best to do it now. Let's get it advertised as with any addition and changes that there are before you do it, and so we don't have to do it again if that were to happen in the future. It would depend on the circumstances, but a lot easier to get that all addressed now. So let's deal with any suggestions right now.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I should have asked for questions, but I know we were answering questions that we were going through, so I apologize for that. You're correct.
Now, screen here that tell me who was long. Now it'll work? No.
No, it's not working.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Also, the screens that tell us, supposed to tell us who's queued up aren't responding, at least mine's not. So I think it was Mr. Hanson first and then Mr. Stanton.
I don't have anything that would materially affect the tip fee schedule or want to make any changes to the budget, but I think 14% going to reserves is something that we need to talk about, especially given that we are concluding the flyover, which was by and large the biggest expense that we were likely to see for a large part of the time, and also we'll be wrapping up the the construction of cell 7. The leachate solution seems to have come to conclusion. 14% is a big number. I think that's something that's worth having that conversation, and I hope we can take some time and actually look at that number. I'm fine with it for this budget cycle. I certainly can appreciate that we're in a period of transition, but going forward, I think it's worth having that discussion. That's all I really wanted to
You were spot on. We intend for that number to go down, but this year, because of the overrun, the cost overruns on the construction of 8 and 9, we fell short on what we need ultimately for the flyover and for construction of cell 7, and those funds are going to replace what we pull. We're going to borrow money to finish that project from one of the other projects, and it's going to fill that in. And we have a couple of items that are part of the waste supply and service agreement that we've got to fund. But you're absolutely right that next year that number will come down.
Just final comment. We're going to have a period where we can look at that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Stan?
Dennis, thank you. A very comprehensive budget presentation. I have no questions about specific line items. My question deals more with sort of the variability and stability around some of these estimates. For example, the tip fee revenue, if you collected 15,000 more than last year instead of 25, that'd be about a $700,000 revenue impact. So could you just kind of walk us through sort of what the stability issues are and variability issues are, and how that would filter down to the expense side that you'd have to modify?
Yes, sir. I don't have a crystal ball. It's very similar to estimating fuel costs. You really don't know what's going to happen. All you can do is use the data that you have. And what we looked at was, like I said before, was the number of tons of waste that we had last year, what the PDC says the growth should be for the upcoming year. And then we looked at the number of tons and this is information we gathered from somebody else. It's not our information. But for instance, I know how many tons of recycling that was being picked up in Suffolk, that we know those tons are going to be coming to us this year. But we could have a pandemic. I'm giving you an example because this really happened. And what happened was our municipal waste went way below what we had projected. But what also happened at that same time was commercial waste went above. And the reason for that, I think I've given this example before, that hamburger that you used to get at McDonald's and bring home and eat, and that was municipal waste, or when that hamburger that you ate at McDonald's and threw in the trash can at McDonald's, that was commercial waste you bring home and it becomes municipal waste. And so there's things that fluctuate that you can't project, but we use the data that we have to do the best we possibly can, and there may be some variables in it. But what I can tell you, and there's this board the folks that have been on the board for some time can tell you that for the most part, our projections are really, really close. They may not be exactly right, well, they're not exactly right, but they're very, very close. And that could fall apart, and it is what it is, and that's why one of the reasons why you have reserves. But hopefully we do a good job of this most of the time, and I think that these numbers have some validity from the data that we use to try to support them.
Thank you, Dennis.
So I'd like to mention that, Mr. Stanton, that was a good point. As Dennis just showed us, 94% of our revenue comes in from our tipping fees. And yes, we were in the pandemic, we had commercial go up and residential go down. But in an overall recession, say an economic downturn, they might both go down. And we would find ourselves in a revenue problem, which gets back then to Mr. Hansen's good point about the reserves. In the past, the reserves are there for two reasons. One is we don't sell debt. We essentially fund all of our capital requirements, which are lumpy. They come and go, and they're big lumps at times. And so we end up having to essentially build up reserves to pay for these things in advance. But those reserves are also there for if there is a downturn and we were gonna come short in revenue, there have been years where we've had to pull on those reserves to make up lost revenue, so.
And also I would add, you know, when budgeting, like last year, we budgeted for fuel. And we based that on what we thought the market was gonna do, based on the great minds we have in this country. But what happened was the price of fuel went down. And so we had the surplus, and I think you're gonna find that when Sandy gives her presentation today, we do have a surplus right now in fuel revenue, but we expect that to go away pretty quickly because of the change, you know, and the world economy when it comes to fuel. So there's a lot of things we can't project. We just use our best, the best data that we have to try to come up with what we think it's gonna be.
Any other questions on the budget? So we only need, fortunately, a majority vote today in order to adopt the preliminary tip fee schedule and then set the time and date for the public hearing, which I presume is going to be next month.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
However, help me out, Mr. Brett, for adopting the budget and the tip fee schedule formally next month, does that only take just a majority?
Yes.
Okay, but part of our budget adoption is to also change our standard operating procedures, and that takes the supermajority. So we would, if we don't have enough board members here next month to do that, we would have to defer those, updating those standard operating procedures until we're able to get 12 board members here. And that assumes all 12 would vote affirmatively.
Ready for the resolution?
Yep.
All right, we've got the written resolution that's in your packet. This is to adopt the preliminary schedule of fees and set the public hearing and the publication of the public hearing by the authority. So I'm going to read this for the record. Resolution to adopt preliminary schedule of fees and charges for the Southeastern Public Service Authority of Virginia and setting date for public hearing on same. Whereas the Board of the Southeastern Public Service Authority of Virginia, sometimes referred to herein as SPSA, desires to change certain rates, fees, or charges previously fixed by SPSA for the services available through its refuse collection and disposal system by increasing rates payable for municipal solid waste, residential solid waste, and municipal solid waste unacceptable at transfer stations, and establishing tiered pricing based on tonnage levels for contract non-municipal customers, with such changes to be effective July 1, 2026. And whereas in connection with proposed changes to existing rates, fees, or charges, and proposed fixing of new rates, fees, or charges to be levied by SPSA for the disposal of solid waste at its facilities, Section 15.2-5136G and Section 15.2-5136H of the Virginia Water and Waste Authorities Act, the Act require, 1, the adoption by SPSA of a resolution setting forth a preliminary schedule fixing and classifying such rates, fees, and/or charges. 2, SPSA to set and hold a public hearing with respect to such preliminary schedule where all users of the systems or facilities and all other interested parties have an opportunity to be heard concerning the proposed rates, fees, and charges set forth therein. 3, notice of such public hearing to be given by 2 publications in a newspaper having a general circulation in the area served by SPSA's refuse collection and disposal system, with the first notice being published no more than 28 days before and the second notice appearing no less than 7 days before the date fixed in such notice for the hearing. And 4, a copy of such notice to be mailed to the governing bodies of all localities in which such refuse collection and disposal system or any part thereof is located. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of the Southeastern Public Service Authority of Virginia hereby adopts the preliminary revised schedule of fees and charges for solid waste management, setting forth such rates, fees, and charges to be levied by SPSA for the disposal of solid waste at its facilities, with the change to new rates reflected in such schedule to be effective July 1, 2026, as set forth on the attached page. And further resolved that the Board of the Southeastern Public Service Authority of Virginia hereby, 1, establishes May 27, 2026 at 9:30 a.m. as the date and time for the public hearing on the preliminary revised schedule of fees and charges for solid waste management. And 2, authorizes and directs SPSA executive staff to provide notice of such public hearing as required under and in accordance with the applicable provisions of Section 15.2-5136G of the Act by publication and with copies by mail to the governing bodies of SPSA's member localities, adopted by the board this 22nd day of April 2026.
All right, so our attorney, our general counsel has read the proposed resolution, and we've discussed it. Is there, I would entertain a motion and a second to adopt the resolution?
Move.
We have a motion by Mr. Moore and a second by Ms. Lowe. Is there any more discussion? There having no discussion, we are going to actually, in this case, this requires a roll call vote, so we won't be using our electronic voting system.
Mr. Sori? Yes. Mr. Stanton?
Yes.
Mr. Robertson? Yes. Mr. Person? Yes. Mr. Stromberg? Yes. Mr. Parnell? Yes. Ms. Lowe? Yes. Mr. Moore? Yes. Mr. Hughes? Yes. Mr. Leahy?
Yes.
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
All right, motion is carried, resolution is carried. The next item on the agenda is communication updates. Mr. Zach Trees, our SPSA Public Relations Manager, will provide an update in strategic communications, events, and what's going on with SPSA SORT. Zach?
I'm going to try and keep this to 10 minutes if I can get my stopwatch out. Oh, yeah, clicker. Oh, I got one. Thank you. All right, well, good morning and happy Earth Day, everyone. We joke all the time that, well, we say all the time, it's not really a joke, that a dump is a pile of trash, whereas a landfill is a carefully engineered system to protect the environment, and that's what we do every day. That's the heart of our operation. And so today on Earth Day, we put out a post on Facebook this morning with that message, as well as a lot of cool imagery coming out from our landfill. We have some very talented staff, Grace among them in the room, just being able to identify, you name it, on that property. If it's a plant, if it's an insect, if it's an animal, she will tell you exactly what it is. And so we walked around with Grace and another member of our staff who takes photographs, and we took a bunch of up-close images of just a sampling of things that call our landfill home. And so definitely check that out on Facebook. But just to give you an overview of what we'll go over today, we've got some events that we'll do a quick show and tell of everything since our last board meeting. We have some updates of all of the ad campaign metrics, things that have happened over the last few months, a lot of it relating to SPSA SORT, and then a quick update about that transparency dashboard that we're hoping to release this summer. It's been a busy time. So as the chairman mentioned at the top of the meeting, the April 2nd board meeting was a huge success. Most all of you were there to experience that. That was the region coming together, just great collaboration. Members of the media there were tours, and so it was just great to celebrate that moment of this expansion of the AMP facility and what it will do for our region. After that, Dennis, Kyle, and I had the pleasure of attending the SWANA and VRA conference that was down at the oceanfront, and it was great to share what we're doing at SPSA, but also attend a lot of great presentations about what others are doing in the industry, what other regions are doing, and just talking with everyone in the Virginia hub. Next month, we'll go down to South Carolina and do a similar thing. So we're definitely reaching more of the East Coast, and I believe, Dennis, what date are you going to Jacksonville? Is it Jacksonville in Florida? Okay, well, we can touch on that later. After the conference, we went to Hampton Roadshow. You can see Dennis and Chris there on set. That was an exciting opportunity that's reaching an audience that we have not done yet of TV, and that went out to over 15,000 homes in the region, watched that broadcast live. hopefully you caught some of it. If not, definitely check it out on our Facebook, our website, and the Wavy Hampton Road Show website. Live Green Norfolk happened this weekend, and this is an event that we did with Norfolk out at Lafayette Park, and we debuted our prototype mascot, Scout, who is here today at the water table. You can see Scout sitting in the high chair there. Scout brought a lot of stickers, a lot of activity books, things that we're handing out at these events to community members, learning about what we do at SPSA and the new technology going forward. So definitely say hi to Scout on your way out. Grab as many of those activity books and stickers that you want. Spread them out to families, neighbors, whomever. Don't be shy. We got plenty more upstairs if we run out. And then some of those recycling drives that took place this month. It's a big spring cleaning time. So Chesapeake and Suffolk both had, Chesapeake had 377, but Suffolk had the big one of almost 500 residents attending that recycling drive. They had shredding, they had tire collection. So a lot of residents go out to these for what we offer, which are the HHW and e-waste pickup, but there's other collection opportunities at these events. And so those two numbers from Chesapeake and Suffolk were the overall numbers from the organizers. That April 18 event in Portsmouth, that 289 number was just the residents that visited our trailers. We don't have the overall number from the organizer yet, but I would imagine it's closer to 500, 400 or 500. And all of these numbers are like record breaking, like 20 to 50% more than usual, what they're used to. And we think that has a lot to do with some of the things that we've been pushing on social media. We definitely put some money behind putting the information out for these events, and so it led to increased turnout. And so talking about some of those campaigns, here is a sampling of some of those campaigns that we've been doing since maybe February time. And there's been 12 campaigns altogether. You can see from the smattering of images here, a lot of these ones are dealing with SPSA sort forward. But as I said before, we're also doing a lot of campaigns about the community recycling events, different items that fall under the household hazardous waste that we don't want residents putting in the trash. And altogether, from these 12 campaigns, we've reached over 500,000 unique users, and that's locked within our service area. So that's really 500,000 residents that we reached with just a little less than 8,000 advertising spent. So it's been a great effort so far. And okay, there's that example right there that I'm playing the video of. That's the trash GPT style creatives that we had. There were 4 of those that went out. It's just a question and then an answer. If people want to learn more, they can go to our website. Getting some feedback on Facebook from some of those campaigns. We know the Facebook comment section can sometimes be a bit of a battleground. I'm sure some of you are aware about that being close to your municipalities, but fortunately for a lot of these, it was very positive comments, a lot of people engaging. Happy to hear about events that are happening in their community, and then learning more about SPSA sort and what the technology does. And that image in the bottom right corner, that was from a SPSA sort branded creative. And residents really liked the line of, we're putting AI where it belongs in the trash. A lot of residents liked, laughed, and engaged with that style of post. And we think that's important to mix in some punchy, informal type of lines, especially in a comment section. We think that's a good way of reaching those residents and keeping it respectful and fun, of course. All right, and then I showed that video of those trash GPT style creatives. So those came in 4 forms. There were 4 questions and answers, and I just wanted to go over the geographic findings and basically what the metrics were saying, because we geo-targeted targeted this and were able to track it by community. And so there were certain communities where certain questions resonated. And so I'll start with the first one that targeted all zip codes, and that was the question, why is our community's trash system changing? And all communities really responded well to all of these creatives, but the winner for this question in particular was Norfolk. Norfolk residents had the lowest cost per result for this particular creative. So that could be an interesting point to take back to residents of Norfolk, that they are interested in the future of like, hey, what's happening around the corner? Why is our system changing? The ad number 2 targeted all zip codes again, but this was just a simple question about what is SPSA sort? And the clear winner here was Suffolk, the community of Suffolk, and that could be, maybe I was thinking, well, Suffolk residents, I think they know about SPSA the most, as the home community to the landfill. Maybe that word SPSA hits home a little more, and learning about what SPSA is doing to divert materials from the landfill is of great interest to them. They had the highest click-through rate, so clicking into that ad, maybe clicking a learn more button to learn more about what is SPSA sort. We saw that the most from our Suffolk residents. Then moving down to ad number 3, this was again all zip codes, but just the younger adult age group of 18 to 44 years old. This had the question, what happens to my trash when it gets picked up? And so maybe younger audiences might have this question of, what happens after it gets picked up? New to a community, I'm new to adulthood, like what does happen after I bring it to the curb? And we saw that Chesapeake residents, this one was close between Chesapeake and Norfolk, but Chesapeake residents were most interested in this style of question. And we think Chesapeake residents they're curious, they're involved, they just want to know what's that next step in the process. And then finally, our last ad was a Portsmouth only targeted ad, because this had the question, why is the garbage truck picking up my recycling bin? And Portsmouth residents, among all the other campaigns, the ones that targeted all zip codes, this one had the highest CTR, that's that click-through rate. So they're clicking into the ad, they want to know more. There appears to be possibly still a knowledge gap of addressing to those residents, well, why is this still happening? Why is my recycling bin getting picked up by a trash truck? What's happening? And so we're going to continue to take this information to inform our communications, and I think it's important for you all to take back to your hubs whenever you're talking to your teams and your residents about what is important to them, what do they still want to know. So we're going to be here, we're establishing that touch point between us and all of your communities. If you have questions about these things, if you need answers to resident questions, we are here to support you through that process. Dennis, look, you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to this particular slide, the ads that were targeted to all zip codes, those were general questions that talk about really SPSA and what we're doing. Just general information everybody would want to know. Before we target a specific area like Portsmouth, we're working with the leadership team in that city to make sure that we don't get out in front of what they want to put out. We're working with Suffolk now, we're working with Chesapeake, we're working with Virginia Beach. We're moving closer to working more with Virginia Beach now. We kind of scratched the surface at this point. But as any of the other communities have communications folks and they want these things going out, we will work with you to get them out, but we don't want to get out in front of you. We've got to have a united message as we go out. For instance, the Portsmouth message is talking about they're already dumping everything into one truck. So it's important that their citizens know why that blue can is being dumped in the regular truck. So if anybody has any questions. So we are targeting these to specific communities, and we're working with the leadership in those communities to make sure that the message is correct.
Yep. And that's pretty much it on all of those ad campaigns. One more thing, because I don't have a slide for it, it's that quick update on the transparency dashboard. At next board meeting, we will have call it like a soft launch of that transparency dashboard. We'll send it out to each of you directly to be able to click into it, take a look at all the data that we have so far, give us your feedback, and then about a month after that, month to 2 month, we'll have a public-facing launch of that dashboard that we have on our website, and we'll be promoting that in various ways.
And the only reason we don't have that dashboard out now is because we want to make sure that the data that we put out there is rock solid, that nobody can blow a hole in it. So one of the things that we've realized is that part of the problem with recycling is that there's no confidence that people are doing what they say they want to do. And this transparency dashboard is to make sure that citizens know exactly what we say we're doing, we're actually doing.
Mm-hmm. And it gives AMP, AMP's been obviously still evolving and still expanding their operation. And so it gives them a chance to be able to give more data as the facility is expanding. They're doing some more changes to the hub facility, which is just that single stream side. If you were at the tour, at the ribbon cutting ceremony, we just saw the MSW side. There's a whole nother facility there where they further sort all those recyclables to their commodity. They've been making some upgrades to that, and we think that's going to give us even more data. And so rather than release something that's kind of bare bones and then make a couple of changes in the coming months, we just wanted to wait until we had a lot more data to go right away. All right.
Are there any other questions or comments on this?
Yeah, thank you. I do think it would be helpful to have maybe some videos that we're posting along with what we're doing, especially if we can get videos of those where we're showing that the products are being further sorted and cleaned up. I think that's there's some questions that we're getting regarding the quality of the recycled commodities that are coming because they're all commingled together. I think there's some questions about what the quality looks like and whether or not they're actually able to hit the commodity market and receive a good price. So I think some videos.
Yeah, that was a topic at at the conference we were at. A lot of people question that, but the fact is that they're selling it for the same thing as they are in a facility that's processing single stream. So we certainly have some video opportunities for that.
All right, great, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Norman? Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
So the next on the agenda, pardon? Oh, okay. So now we're going to have Norm Strickland is going to update us on Cell 7 construction.
Good morning. Cell 7.
When we get closer to the mic.
We on?
Yeah, going.
As you see this approach from north, flying over, lay down area or cleared and you coming a little hard to get in here because the land, not all of it. Over, crossing over the gap. And see from light, all those are spreading out different materials to your left side, Cell 7 Phase 1. This area over here. Look at this. See the interceptor trenches putting in to help mitigate the water and the quantity of water leaching out of these banks. That's what you kind of see there. It's not close-up photos. We'll have better photos. That's kind of what's going on right now. Last month we reported on 240,000 cubic yards remaining in the soil to be excavated. We're at about 150,000 cubic yards right now remaining. And, and from that point, some of that material, they asked, basically the perimeter around the landfill is about 1 mile, a little over 5,000 linear feet. Those berms are being lifted in lifts of about 6 inches. That material goes up there, put down, it's compacted, rolled, and then every lift is tested for moisture and compaction rate. That's kind of what's going on. That has improved. Basically, weather has played a big role on that, helping us. Liner material is on site. We say liner material. Actually, it's geotech. It's drainage material that great big rolls. There's like a football field full of this. That'll be, when that subgrade is actually ready for it, that'll be the next material that'll go in, almost like a double-sided felt material that has stabilizer in between, like black mesh. That'll go in. Then next thing you'll see protective layer with paint. That'll hopefully next month. Fingers crossed, we'll see some protective material in the cell. Leachate piping is ongoing. Bodies, water. Underliner, the groundwater pumping, side of 3/10 up. Valleys. Kind of question. We'd be glad to do that.
I would just remind everyone that we build integrated landfills, which means that we go down to about 40 feet in the center. And the reason that we do that is that it's an environmental, it's a positive environmental step, because if you have a leak in the liner anywhere, the groundwater will come into the landfill rather than leachate going out of the landfill because of the hydraulic pressure from the water. So it makes it a little more difficult to build, which is what I think a lot of what Norman was talking about was some of the water problems that we're dealing with. But in the long run, the landfill gives you additional airspace because you're going into the ground, and it also makes it much more of an environmental asset from because of the fact that you are 40 feet into the ground. Any questions for Norman?
All right, so next up is Kyle Strickland, and he's going to update us on House Bill 86, which is a mattress stewardship program. And I've been told, though, that since like the General Assembly, which tends to change things, a lot of things have changed since since your handouts were printed. So he's going to update. Some of the material is going to be a little new.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Luckily, the changes on mine are good changes, I think, from a standpoint that the governor has vetoed HB 86, so it's dead in the water, will not advance any further this legislative cycle. To read her message for the veto directly, and I quote from Governor Spanberger, "I recognize that discarded mattresses can pose disposal challenges and take up valuable landfill space. However, HB 86 would require Virginians to pay a new fee for a mattress recycling program that is earmarked for one specific organization. Mandating that all mattress retailers and producers participate in a single program and increase their prices to cover this fee makes the program unworkable for the Commonwealth. For these reasons, I veto this bill," end quote. And that's recognizing that it would add additional costs to the consumer. Using a sole source program oversight would prevent competition and drive up cost to the program. There were some real trepidation of having a one central organization that's not a state organization handling that. So that turns us to our next steps. Soon there. We like the idea of HB 86. We recognize there is a need to manage mattress disposals in our service area. So SPSA is taking that very seriously. We're looking at mechanisms for collecting, processing, and diverting mattresses from our landfills, whether there's legislation or not. We see that this is of vital importance. So Dennis has directed me to spearhead some projects to look at how we can mitigate mattresses going into our landfill. So that is of utmost importance. In that same regard, that's also caused us to turn and look at that other items that causes issues in our landfill, primarily lithium-ion batteries, rechargeable batteries that are posing a huge risk that we're seeing an overabundance coming in. That how can we look at ways in the future to divert this coming in from the landfill? This is safe practices and also ensuring that the life of our landfill continues to increase. So as our projects that we're working on internally come to fruition, we'll brief the board as those come along. Next, I did want to turn your attention to a project going on in Portsmouth that'll impact operations pretty significantly. The Paradise Creek Bridge has been scheduled for replacement by the city of Portsmouth, and that is this area on the map here. This area is our Portsmouth transfer station, which is the Victory Boulevard AMP facility that we're constructing as well. It is also our fleet services garage. So major operations come in and out. When tractor trailers are dispatched, that's their home base. So the city of Portsmouth, we found out on March the 27th from city engineer that this project was scheduled for a notice to proceed approximately April 13th. That would be a complete closure of Paradise Creek Bridge, both ways. That would severely limit flow coming into our facility via Victory Boulevard. The natural progression is you get off 264 on Victory and you follow that all the way into the landfill. To our facility on Victory Boulevard. With that complete closure, there would only be two access points. That would be coming in off the Jordan Bridge, which is untenable for various reasons of traffic flow coming from the west, and then Elm Avenue. That would be the major diversion routes. The issue with Elm Avenue really poses a significant safety issue. There is a this is Elm Avenue here, and then the railroad runs right here, and there is a cross point on Elm Avenue. Received this information from the Norfolk Portsmouth Beltline Railroad. This is their blocking data of when that intersection is blocked, and you can see it is pretty significant, especially during those hours of 8 to 10, and then in the afternoon and evening as well, when trucks are coming in and out of that facility, when we primarily need it. Obviously, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are significant hours. Apologies. An average duration was 5 minutes of a blockage, and that obviously is higher during that Monday through Thursday time, but it averaged out to be about 5 minutes, about 3.5 to 4 times a day. That can pose significant issues. When that intersection is blocked at Elm Avenue, that would mean there would only be one emergency service entrance to our facility, and that would be South Norfolk Bridge. Just to go back a slide, the South Norfolk Bridge has reached out to neighboring businesses and community members. They've reached out to the Craddock community. They have no idea that this project is going on. There's been no communication, so that was a new development on their end. Norfolk Naval Shipyard obviously would be impacted this as well. Gate 36 entrance is right here. which would be impacted. They have some serious concerns on it as well. South Norfolk Bridge has raised their concerns, as well as all the local businesses in that corridor. So again, there's some safety concerns, there's some emergency service concerns, and there is going to be substantial operational impacts for SPSA. So we're working as best we can without raising too much noise. We understand that this project is needed. South Norfolk Bridge, as well as Norfolk Naval Shipyard and ourselves, think that perhaps a single lane closure and diversion of traffic to a working span would be optimal. Again, that's the city's decision, and we've communicated that and see no response to date. Happy to answer any questions on that project or the mattress issue if anybody has any.
Kyle, can you move to the next slide after this? The one piece of data that really bothers me is the one on the bottom left where it says maximum blockage duration. I had a blockage of an hour at that intersection, and if there's a blockage at that intersection for an hour, there's no access at all to from emergency services from Portsmouth to get to our facility. So, and that's a dangerous facility to be working at. So, I'm really bothered by that number. It may not be an everyday occurrence, but if there's one time and it happens to be a time when we need emergency services, we can't get it. So, like Kyle said, we understand that, you know, Portsmouth is a member community, but we certainly hope that they will consider all of the concerns that we've raised and that all the other businesses have raised.
Thank you, Dennis. And one thing of note too, this survey was done September to April. The train traffic significantly picks up, as does automobile traffic in the summer months. So we could look at this even going higher. Yes, sir, Mr.
Kyle, just for clarification, so this is the Portsmouth facility that's under construction for the SPSA sort project?
It is is where that project will be, but that is also our fleet maintenance garage. That's where all the tractor trailers are based that do all the operations. There are transportation building is there where the drivers gather in the morning for their morning pass downs. If there's a flat tire, they have to go to this facility. So there's a lot of traffic for SPSA in and out, regardless of the AMP project going on. And it also acts as a Portsmouth transfer station for some of their waste as well.
So in addition to the operational impacts, could there be an impact on the commissioning date or full ramp date for this, for the facility there?
It will certainly interrupt construction on that, just from construction vehicles coming in and out and the difficulty they're going to have navigating. We don't anticipate any long-term ribbon cutting dates being moved, but it's gonna cause some impact, certainly. Okay, thank you very much.
Now we'll move into the Executive Director's Report. I wanted to recognize, it's coming up, it's after this. Wanted to recognize Angie Hutchins today. Angie, stand up. Angie, could you stand up? She's used to that. One day we came in and she was going to speak at the podium over here, and somebody had put a stepladder behind it for her. So it's just she's a lot of fun to be with. But Angie, she's director of whatever needs to be done. That's what I call her. She's actually the director of procurement assets, but she does a lot of other things other than that. She handles all of our procurement, bids, pre-bids, awarding contracts, works with the EVA, all of the things that we have to do for contracting. She provides once the contract is completed, she provides administrative oversight of the contract with the contractor and whoever that contract might be for. If it's for a transfer station, they'll work through her to work with the contractor. She works closely with finance on both the operating and capital budget, as well as purchase orders and receiving. And I talked about earlier our capital equipment plan. Angie is one of the key players on that committee that works that. It's Angie and Norman, and used to be me, but now it's Kyle and Lee, and there's a group of people who work on that, but Angie's certainly instrumental in that group and maintaining that capital plan. She's responsible for maintaining all of our capital assets. If we buy a vehicle, from the time we buy it, we get the bill of sale, to get a title, to when it's sold at auction. She tracks all of that. She's our fuel czar. She knows how many gallons of fuel every vehicle runs. She provides a fuel budget for all of our operations, and everybody depends on her for something. If you ever in a meeting, she's usually going to be in it doing something. So I just want to recognize all that she does and say thank you, Angie. Moving into the flyover update, this project is, I'm going to knock on wood again, because this is not a typical project. When we got into this, I worked with a lot of the DPWs on the board, and they gave me a lot of horror stories, but this one has not been a horror story at all. The project it remains under budget, which is rarely something that you say with a road project. And at our meeting yesterday, our April meeting yesterday with VDOT, we were informed that the project has finally crossed that threshold into being ahead of schedule. It was behind schedule most of the time, and there were a lot of actions that VDOT took to try to get it back on target, and now we're ahead of schedule. The current bridge opening date is early June. If you recall our last meeting, it was we were kind of guessing it'd be Memorial Day weekend. They really wanted to try to get Memorial Day weekend, which would be well in advance of what we had originally anticipated. So now they're saying early June as of yesterday. The new overhead signs, the old ones are coming down. The new ones are going up tomorrow night. That talk about all of the eastbound traffic and westbound traffic will be redirected. Eastbound pavement widening is completed. Westbound widening will start on the 27th of this month, and all the light poles at the entrance of the landfill at Bob Fuller are up, and we think most of them are operating, but the engineer that was on the call yesterday said there may be one or two that's still not operating, but they were still working on those. So as you can see, the project is really coming into its own, and we're working with VDOT now to plan some sort of opening, and we need to get with Suffolk to discuss that opportunity to open that and how we might want to do that. So I think at this point, the project is going well. We do have those three issues that the contractors brought up that VDOT has refused action on at this point that could come back, but we think, especially if they finish early and they get their early completion bonus, that all may go by the wayside. That's what we're hopeful of. Any questions on the flyover? I think that the shoulder closures are still going to be in place, but most of the lane closures are now completed. There may be a couple of lane closures. When we talked yesterday, I tried to nail them down, but he thinks that there might be some lane closures coming up when they put in the guardrails that are going to be around the structure area, but he wasn't certain on that, but we'll keep a close eye on that. And I know they're working closely with your folks, Kevin, so if there are any questions anybody has, I'll be glad to try to answer them. Okay. SPSA sort project update. April 2nd, ribbon cutting. I wanted to commend the chairman on his speech at the ribbon cutting ceremony. We had a lot of really positive response about his speech, especially the fact that he talked about regionalism and just the way he approached this, and he was very timely in his remarks. So I think that's always a reason why people are going to applaud you, but his remarks were very good and very, very meaningful to everyone that was there. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. You did a wonderful job. There was a lot of people there. It was really a regional event. I appreciate all the delegates from Suffolk that showed up. There was a lot of you there. The board members here that showed up, I appreciate it. It was a nice event. The AMP Hub is, which is if you recall, the way this system works is they actually create bundles of single stream with the system that you saw or that we went through. So what you end up with is a bale of all this mixed recyclables, plastic, paper, metal, anything that's come out as being recyclable ends up in this bale, and then they move it over. That comes out of what's called the hub system, and it gets transferred over to a sort system at the Frederick Boulevard site, and that takes those commodities, which is essentially what's in your blue can, and it separates those into individual commodities. So the hub and the spoke. The hub is the mixed waste sorting. The spoke is the resorting of those recyclables. Then at the new facility, all of that will be combined into one. It was just a footprint issue where when they bought the facility on Frederick Boulevard, they didn't have enough footprint to do it all in one place. So that's why it is the way it is. But at the new facility, they'll both be together. But the hub at Frederick Boulevard is ready to start receiving 108,000 tons per year, which is a contracted amount for the ramp schedule for July 1. We're still going to hold our testing closer to like the middle of June, but they can accept 108,000 tons now. They started an upgrade of the spoke, which is the section that actually sorts out the recyclables. If you recall, they have been using the system that was in place by the previous vendor, but their plans all along were to put an IA generated or IA operated facility in the spoke section, and they brought down the old system on the 20th. And they're expecting about 30 days they'll be back up and running on the spoke side, and they'll be sorting recyclables then with the AI and robotics and air and all the other things they're doing in the other facility. We were on the Hampton Road Show on the 13th, and we promoted Silver Sort. That was a good experience for us, and I think we got a lot of publicity on that, and Zach had already gave you some numbers on that. And then on the 13th of April, I participated in Waste Today magazine, which is a premier waste magazine in the United States. They did a webinar titled "A New Approach to MSW Diversion Inside the U.S.'s Largest Recycling Project." There were 350 people signed up for that webinar from all over the world. They had them from UK, Canada, all over the United States. It was a really big deal, and we got a lot of positive responses from those people who attended that. I got phone calls, emails from a lot of the people wanting to talk more about the project. So we're really generating a lot of interest across the world, and I never really thought when we got into this project, I knew it was going to be neat and that it was going to be a lot of interest, but not nearly what we're receiving. The kind of interest that we're receiving on this project is unbelievable. It is a premier waste project in the United States right now. So some of the numbers from the sort system, as the left-hand column is the contract requirements, and then the actuals from February, and then the actuals from March. Those contract requirements are annual contract requirements, so you may see, like you're going to see today, under the recyclables sold, it was 21% last month, but it was 19% this month. They would offset, and you would still be within the range, but we won't look at that until the end of the year. But 30% on organic diversion is what the contract says. In March, they achieved 31%. Last month was 38%. 20% recyclable sold, 21% last month and 19% this month. Diversion at 50%. In February, they had 59% diversion. This month, they has 50% diversion. And then the residue, 41% residue that went to the landfill in February, and this month it was 50%. And those numbers meet their contract requirements. But I also tell you that we switched from February to March the waste that was going over there from different locations. So some of those numbers are representative of the different types of waste that comes in there. And if you're in this business, you know that every community has our own kind of waste composition. And so that will change from time to time. So our leachate numbers are back where they should be. Just a couple of numbers on for the sake of time, I want to go through. Our throughput this month was a little over 1.5 million, where last month it was just over 1 million. And the reason for that is the uptime. It's down at the bottom, concentrator uptime. Last month, we only had 73% uptime. This month, we had 94% uptime, or 697.2 hours that the system was actually operating. So those are really good numbers. We're targeting for anything above 90% because of the maintenance you have to do. You're going to have downtime because you have to bring it down, clean filters on a regular basis. So we're going to see downtime, but as long as we can keep it up in the 90% range, we're doing really well. Pump and haul, 64,000 gallons. That's about 12 truckloads of leachate that got hauled the whole entire month. So our municipal tons for February, and this goes back to a point that Mr. Stanton was making earlier, is how do we determine these numbers? As I've said before to you all, if you look at our the flow of waste from January or from July through June, and you could just layer the last 10 years, it would look like almost one line, because I don't know why, I can't explain the reason why, but the waste seems to come and go every year on the same months. February is going to be, March is where we are, but what I'm saying is February is always going to be the lowest number, always. So we are, excuse me, I hit the wrong button. We are back above the 37,000 tons that we budgeted. We're at 39,000 for the month of March. For commercial tons, it's usually the same thing that we're going to see. The numbers dip and go up to the top about the same time every year. This month we were 26,000 tons, and we were 24,000 is the budgeted number. This chart just shows where we are in terms of the blue area is that we brought in more than we actually budgeted for. The yellow line is the budgeted number, and the blue line is where we actually are. This is municipal tons. We are about 7,000 tons over where we projected the budget to be, and then commercial tons were just under where we budgeted for by about 3,000 or so, 2,000 or so tons. So I think we're right where we need to be at in terms of commercial tons. At this time, I'm going to ask Cam to come up. There are two bills that were out that really are going to have impact on us in some way. We have asked our legal team through Brett to take a look at both of these bills because there's some tricky language in them. We will be coming back to you again, but what we do know is the bills were passed the House and the Senate, and they were conditionally vetoed by the governor. But that conditional veto, when you look at what her conditional veto was, there's certainly fixable things that goes back to the legislature today. They'll begin to hear these conditional vetoes. So these laws are going to come out in some form or fashion when it's all said and done, and we're going to have a legal team come back and give you the final laydown of exactly what that means to you moving forward. It won't affect us this year, but it will affect us in the near future.
Good morning, everyone. So Senate Bill 2 introduces a comprehensive paid family and medical leave insurance program. It amends several sections of the Code of Virginia and establishes new insurance types and framework for employee support. The bill defines private family leave insurance for employer-provided benefit programs and establishes paid family and medical leave insurance as a policy meeting state program requirements for private plans as determined by the VEC. So essentially what that means is you can either do the state program or the private insurance program as long as it meets state requirements. So as of now, the rollout, January 1st, 2028, the commission will establish the paid family medical leave insurance program. In April, the VEC will create the necessary rules and regulations and it would also start the collection for the contributions from employers. In December, the Department of Human Resource Management will modify state employee family leave policies, and also the commission will begin receiving claims and payout benefits. So eligible reasons for leave are essentially the same as federal FMLA. It'll be caring for the birth of a child, adoption, caring for a family member with serious conditions, your own or the employee's own serious health conditions, caring for service members who are next of kin, qualifying extended leave related to family members' active military duty, seeking safety services for self or family members due to violence or harassment. Those last two are additions as of now. Benefit duration. So 12 weeks is the
Cam.
maximum benefit.
Cam.
Yes, sorry.
What you just said, can you repeat that? I mean, there are additions from the current Family Medical Leave Act, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So 12 weeks will be the maximum benefit payable per benefit year for any covered individual. That runs concurrent with federal FMLA. That is not to say that they can take 12 weeks unpaid and then get 12 weeks behind it. They have to go together. 80% weekly benefit amount based on the covered individual's average weekly wage. $100 minimum weekly benefit unless the average wage is less than the full wage is paid. That's pretty much for like part-time employees. 100% state average maximum weekly benefit amount adjusted annually to reflect state average weekly net earnings. Right now, the statewide average is 1,507. That was earlier this year. Employers with greater than 10 employees will deduct up to 50% of contributions from employee wages and remit the full required contribution to the fund. And employers with less than or equal to 10 employees will deduct 50% of the contribution for employee wages and remit only the deducted amount to the fund. And the total will be determined once the commissioner. That's it. So proposed changes for this, it narrows family member coverage by moving away from the bills. The current bill has close association equivalent to family concept, and it moves it more towards the conventional household relative base definition. It will add work authorization and tenure limits, including requiring a worker to be legally authorized to work in the U.S. and for job protection when employed for 120 days. It also clarifies certification requirements for obtaining leave benefits and clarifies job restoration rights and related employer obligations. Right behind that, another bill that's up for discussion right now is public sector collective bargaining. So as it stands right now, House Bill 1263 allows public sector employees to unionize absent a city or locality ordinance and establishes a public employee relation board. Currently under VA Code 40.1 to 57.2, localities can opt in to allow collective bargaining. Right now it's under conditional veto with governor's recommendations. And those recommendations are, it gives localities more flexibility in how they can coordinate with the PRB. So it doesn't make them initially, if your locality is under an ordinance right now, you wouldn't initially have to jump into fully utilizing the PERB. It would have an extended period. That way it can still honor the current collective bargaining agreement. It preserves existing local collective bargaining procedures for jurisdictions that have already adopted them, rather than forcing immediate conversion to the new statewide process. It delays statewide trigger dates for some PERB-driven bargaining implementation until January 1st, 2030. Right now it's at 2028. And rather than have the framework take hold sooner, which is January 8th. It clarifies that any labor agreement with budget implications still requires approval by local governing body that has budget authority.
So on this particular piece of legislation here, I think that the impact is going to be very narrow for us. Currently, we don't allow collective bargaining. There are some localities that have passed legislation or passed ordinances that allow that. I think Portsmouth did. Is that not right, Mr. Stromberg? Didn't Portsmouth pass that for last year or the year before that? So there's only a handful of communities that currently do that. What this does is it says that you can't deny it. So just because it goes into effect doesn't mean that all of a sudden we're in a collective bargaining situation. It means that there has to be someone comes to us and say we want to unionize and we want collective bargaining rights. So that's the first thing that's got to happen. And I think this legislation that the governor's veto says if you already have, like Portsmouth does, they have that option in place. This doesn't supersede that because they have obligations under that particular collective bargaining agreement that they have to honor. So that's one of the changes. But I think the most telling piece of that is the bottom bullet. It says clarify that any labor agreement with budget implications still requires approval of local governing bodies that has the budget authority. So even if you have negotiations with a group, if the governing body doesn't approve it in the budget, it doesn't happen. So I'm not sure what impact this is really going to have, but it does move us closer to allowing collective bargaining in government. So just kind of leave it at that. Also, there's some language in there about whether we're a state agency or not, and that's part of what our legal team is looking at. So we'll come back with you, but I think where there's probably the most impact is going to be under the family medical leave policy. I think that's probably going to have some significance for you to deal with moving forward.
Yeah, thank you. Dennis, I think you touched on it there at the end. I would hope that after the General Assembly gets a chance to look at this and it goes back to the governor's desk, after modifications are made, that we can have a closed session with legal counsel to discuss. I do think there's some ambiguities or some weirdness in there for SPSA, given that localities are called out in some areas and not in other areas. I would really like to hear what legal counsel has to say about where SPSA's role is in that. Thank you.
We've already reached out to them to work with us on this because of that very reason.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on these two issues? Okay, moving on. Next issue would be Sandy Schreiber, our Chief Financial Officer, and she's going to give us a briefing on an update on our financial report.
Morning, everyone. So I'm reporting as of March 2026, the end of the third quarter of FY26. Total revenues as of March were at $40.7 million. The tipping fees we've talked a lot about, but they were at $22.4 million. Compared to last year, we were at 21.8 at this point. Other revenue, we're at 3.2, and just to compare to last year was 8.2, but remember that we got that large payment from WIN right at the beginning of FY25, so that's why you see the big difference there. The municipal tonnages this year, the increase in tonnage is 9,540 compared to last year, and that's the difference in the 372,000 revenue increase. Our landfill gas royalties as of the end of March were at 607,000. We budgeted 600,000 for the whole year, so we've already exceeded the annual budget. And that's the reason we increased the budget for next year, because we expect it to be even better. And overall, the total revenues are at 76% of the annual budget. Expenditures, as of the end of the third quarter, were $35.5 million. We are really right on track for salaries and wages. Professional services were a little low, and those other operating expenses were already at 94% of the budget. So overall, we're at 72.5% of the budget. The other operating expenses that are high is mainly due to costs associated with the leachate evaporator that we were hard to budget for as of when we did this budget. And then materials and supplies are under budget due to savings, fuel savings earlier in the year, which is slowly going away due to the recent change in the fuel cost. So by the end of the year, we do expect to have enough in the budget to cover our fuel, but we definitely are not going to see the savings that we had hoped to have earlier in the year. So overall, our net operating revenue is 5.2 million. And that compares to 9.7 last year and 6.8 in FY24. Capital expenditures so far this year, we have spent 24 million, and of that, 4.1 million was projects budgeted for the current year, and 19.8 was projects that carried forward, such as flyover, landfill expansion. Flyover, as of the end of March, we have paid 27.8 million in invoices for that, and that's 60% of the total projected cost. So we have 18.6 remaining that we will need to pay them. And for South 7, we have paid 22.3% of the total projected cost, and we have 17.8 remaining that we can expect to pay. Cash balances, as of March, we had 4.6 million in unrestricted funds, 24.7 in landfill closure and post-closure reserves, 19.3 in landfill expansion and flyover funds, and 288,000 in POs rolled from last year that we still have not fully paid, and 3.9 in the undesignated fund balance. And that's all I have.
Are there any questions for Ms. Schreiber? All right. At that point, we would need to have a motion and a second to accept the financial report. We have a motion by Ms. Lowe, second by Mr. Moore. Is there any discussion? If not, we can take a vote, and it looks like the voting system is now working. So we'll use the electronic system, and you can vote. You can vote yes, no, or abstain. Assume everybody's is working. What? You have to touch your screen. If your screen's got, yeah, that was my mistake earlier. So meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Safe travels.